After 8 seasons in the NBA, Mourning was well on his way to the Hall of Fame. By 2000, he was already a 7-time All-Star. He'd averaged 20 points a game during 6 different seasons and twice had led the league in blocks. But at the pinnacle of his career, Mourning was diagnosed with a rare kidney condition that not only threatened his livelihood, but also his life.
Here's Alonzo Mourning, you know, badder than the junkyard dog, tougher than anybody. You're diagnosed. Tell us how that happened.
Routine physical diagnoses me with an elevated creatinine, which is how they gauge kidney function in your bloodstream. And they sent me to a nephrologist, and that's a kidney doctor. And he ran more tests, and then he did a biopsy. And then come to find out, the doctor told me that I had a rare kidney disorder, and I'm saying to myself, immediately, I'm like, okay, what's that all about? What pill do I need to take? Because that's how you're wired as an athlete. It's like, okay, wrap it up, throw some ice on it, take a pill, let's get back out there.
Especially ice.
Put some ice on it. Put some ice on it, take a pill, let's get back out there and play, and the doc told me, like, hey, this isn't one of those injuries.
The doctor told you?
Yes, he said, this isn't one of those injuries. He said, you're gonna have to step away from basketball and deal with this. He said, you're gonna probably need a kidney transplant within a year. And first I asked him, was I gonna be able to play ball again? And he's like...
That was the first question you asked?
That was the first thing I asked him. I said, well, am I gonna be able to play ball again? And he's like, I don't know, it's up to you. And then I asked him, I said, is there a cure for this? And he said, no, there's no cure. You're gonna need a transplant. And then the last question I asked him, am I gonna die? And
that was a stupid question. We're all gonna die.
Okay? Well, sooner than later, all right? Was I gonna die sooner than later?
I can still mess with you.
And he paused for a minute. He didn't answer me immediately. He said, no, you're not gonna die. But I was very, very fortunate when I went through the surgical procedure, have the right doctors to implant this kidney without cutting certain parts of my abdominal wall that I use that athletes use when they're competing, which is a normal procedure for most transplants, for them to cut certain muscles. These doctors didn't cut those muscles. They pulled them to the side, and they tucked the kidney in there because they knew that if they cut those muscles, that would have been impossible for me to come back and play at the level that I did.
When I found out about it, I quickly got on the phone and called him. We talked about it for a long time. And, I was one of the people who volunteered to give up a kidney if we matched. It so happened that we did match, but under his doctor's advice, I wasn't, they told me I shouldn't give it up because, I had high blood pressure, and who knows what would happen to me somewhere down the line.
Well, I remember going to New York and visiting him right after the surgery. And, he walked, he had this gown. It was like to the middle of his thighs. They didn't have one for him that was big enough, in the hospital. He just walked strong right towards me. And he said, I'm gonna come back. He said, I'm gonna come back. This is not gonna get me down. I'll be laid up for a little while. And so to see him broken was hard.
I had a conversation with God. I told God, I said, God, I'm not done yet. Please give me my strength back so I can get back out there and accomplish that goal that I wanted, and that's all I was concerned about at that particular time, He answered my prayers. And you know what? I made a promise to him. I made a promise to God when I was laying in that hospital room with all those wires sticking out of me. And the day after my transplant, sitting in that room by myself, and I told him, I said, look, Lord, if you can give me my strength back, I promise you I'm going to use this experience to help as many people as I can.
Mourning played through his illness on and off for 2 seasons before sitting out all of 2002-2003. He returned to play 2 seasons for the Nets, briefly retiring before a kidney transplant led him back to the NBA. He was then traded to Toronto, where the Raptors bought out his deal, leading him back to Miami, back home, and suddenly in contention for his first title.
I fell into a perfect situation where I didn't have to shoulder the load in Miami. Shaquille O'Neal was the starting center, and I backed him up. I could have gone a lot of other teams and started, and throughout the league made more money and started, but I decided to go there and back Shaquille up and contribute to this young team and veteran team. And we had a young star in D-Wade, you know, Gary Payton, you know, Antoine Walker, Jason Williams, you know, James Posey. You know, we had a good nucleus of guys, and we made it work.
His performance in the finals, you know, his energy that he used, you know, when we needed it, when we was down, to let us know, like, man, listen, we ain't come this far to give this up. And he proved that in the way he played, you know, blocking shots, and he just changed so many. And it just helped our defense out so much that when our offense finally caught up, then we became, you know, a team that can win 4 in a row.
Alonzo, what was the significance of winning the NBA championship to you?
The approach that I had to take through growing up in foster care, you know, through having to deal with, you know, some of the challenges I had to deal with in college, you know, to, you know, dealing with some of the challenges I had to deal with in throughout the beginning of my career, and, you know, the health obstacles and what have you, and then finally reaching that particular pinnacle of your sport, and that's winning it all, winning that world championship. And it was, I tell you, I was able to exhale. I was just like totally, wow, I did it. I was able to truly just, I did it.
Alonzo had a great attitude, and he learned how to use his body. A lot of guys have great components, but they never put them together. Well, Alonzo put them together so that he was a force offensively and defensively.
Alonzo Mourning is one of my favorite players. He never, ever, you never had to wonder what he was giving 110%. He played with maximum effort all the time, all the time. He's a great man. He's a great player.
Alonzo Mourning muscled his way into the Hall of Fame on the strength of his talent and his tireless drive. And on the eve of his enshrinement, he reflected on how he fits among the game's all-time greats.
When you talk about the Hall of Fame, you talk about individuals that are enshrined in that Hall of Fame that very passionate, put their heart and soul into their craft, and they took risk. They did. They took risks. And I'm honored and I'm humbled to be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. I've touched more lives off the court because of my kidney disease than I have on the court playing basketball.
Mourning's heart, soul, and his job remain in Miami, where he serves as the Heat Vice President of Player Programs. He still lives and dies with every Heat contest. He also maintains an important charitable role in South Florida through his Mourning Family Foundation. And his game lives on through his son, Trey, headed to play basketball at Georgetown, just like Dad, starting in the fall of 2014. I'm Matt Weiner. Thanks for watching Looking Back at Alonzo.